Hi folks, obviously next revision video, this one's going to focus on basically why America boomed in the 1920s, so why there was this boom period in America during the 1920s, why America became so rich. A couple of factors to bear in mind is that America was the only country following World War One that actually really benefited financially from the war. So by selling goods to Britain, France, etc., America actually ended the war comfortably the richest power in the world. So there was almost like America, then a line, and then like other countries like Britain and such, in terms of finance following World War One. So they were on a good footing to start with. Now, to start with why America boomed, I'm actually going to start off with the car industry, and the reason is that one of the key reasons why America boomed was mass production. Mass production obviously links into the Model T Ford car. So just a little bit of background for that. Obviously Ford was Henry Ford, and he set out to build a car that everyone could buy, everyone could afford. Cars were obviously a new fangled device in those days, and people wanted them. It's like an iPad now. When something new comes out and there's buzz around it, people want to buy it. So people wanted to have a car, and Ford wanted to make cars affordable for everyone, which would benefit him obviously. And this slow, ugly car was nicknamed the Tin Lizzie, but it was really the Model T Ford, and basically it never ever ever gets any more expensive. It actually decreases in price. So in 1909 you were roughly looking at $1,200 to buy one, but by 1928, which is a year before the Wall Street crash, you could pick one up for $295. Now I can tell you now, cars don't get cheaper over time. You know, like you usually find that the price steadily goes up to match prices in society. So this was revolutionary, and by the 1929, Ford was producing more than a car a minute, which was unheard of. And one of the reasons he was able to do this was mass production. And the way you could do this quite easily was to standardize everything. So he actually did it before you get onto the production line, which we'll come to. He actually just, if you wanted a Model T Ford, you would only be able to get it in one engine size and one colour. So I think there was a Renault advert recently when it comes in black, and they said, oh, like what other colour, and the person said it's noir. It was the same with a Model T. That's it. It was black. Um, and the idea was, with mass production, that you were going to use the assembly line, where you would take um, the work to the man rather than the man to the work. And also you wouldn't need to have like a group of skilled mechanics building a car. You would basically teach people a skill. So you were going to be responsible for putting doors on. It is your responsibility for fitting the windows. So really they didn't need skilled workers anymore, to the where you just basically instead trained people to do one particular job, and it passed down the line and you did that job. And this way, this method of production was basically an assembly line, and it would be used then for everything else. So for example, radios were also a pretty new product. Gramophones, record players, which were around before we had CD players and MP3 players, they would have been produced as well via mass production. So it was basically on the assembly line, passing the work down. You do your bit, it moves, and somebody else does their bit, and it speeds the work up. And that meant the production costs went down massively. And Ford said that basically each man is to do just one job, one responsibility, and keep everything in constant motion. And as I said, take the work to the man, not the man to the work. And this will then be applied in other industries. So this links in mass production, goes from Ford and applies to everything else. It also helps kickstart a cycle of prosperity, which is another reason why America would boom. what you're basically going to have is mass production leads to car sales increasing, and because of this you need more parts in cars, so it affects other industries. So you can see steel will become in demand, rubber will be in demand, glass will be in demand, leather for seats will be in demand. So all those other industries, to keep up with the car industry, will then see an increase in their work as well. So if more people have got jobs, more people are getting paid, and if more people are getting paid and you've got money in your pocket, you can afford to buy a car, but you can afford to buy other products as well. So and then a side point to this is, because more people have got cars, people want to travel around more, not just for jobs, but people want to explore more of America. So there's jobs in building roads. It's going to affect the oil industry in Texas. If people are going out further and there's roads being built, then you need more petrol stations. You need motels and hotels for people to stay over, diners and roadside, places you can stop off, rest stations had to be produced. So the impact of this is that America sees 20% of its steel go up. The rubber industry sees 80% of rubber being used on cars, 75% of glass, 65% of leather is all being fired into the car industry. And it was estimated around about 7 billion gallons of petrol a year was being used by the end of the 20s. So Texas benefited massively from this. So really quickly before we move on to other factors, mass production, you can credit Ford and the car industry for that. That will then impact other areas, will adopt this assembly line, standardized parts techniques. Okay, the car industry will then impact on glass, rubber, and the like. Everything everything you would need to have in a car, those industries are impacted as well. So there's an increase in production and an increase in jobs. Now, because people are getting jobs at this time period, you've got what's known as a cycle of prosperity starting. Think about it yourself. If you're 16 and doing your GCSEs now, you might have a job. Well, you'll find that you start to spend money and treat money differently when you know there's money coming in, right? So if you're buying things, you're actually feeding into something else. Okay, so what you had Americans, jobs are going up, people's got money in their pockets, the market's flooded with all these new products that are affordable, such as cars, radios, etc., and people want to buy them. They've got money in their pocket, they want to see something for it, so people spend their money, and when they spend their money, that creates obviously more of a demand, for example, for more radios to be produced. So that leads to jobs staying safe and more people being employed there. And then when there's more jobs in, say, your other industries producing these new materials and keeping up with demand, then those people spend their money, and the money goes into circulation all the time. And if people's got money and people's buying things, that means eventually people can be taxed. So the money will go back to the government. So this cycle of prosperity is there. You have a job, you spend your money, you buy things, that creates other jobs elsewhere. The other jobs elsewhere then spend their money, they buy things are still being produced, and in the end people are paying taxes. So it was like a win-win position in a time period when fashions had changed and there was a boatload of new inventions. The government at the time, the Republicans, actually did a lot to encourage this. So there was obviously the Fordey-McCumber tariff, which encouraged people to buy American. But on top of this, the government was what you would call laissez-faire, where they basically stayed out of people's lives and basically let people get on with things themselves, by not interfering with how things were being done. Let business run business. Okay, and people and businesses also found their taxes lowered. So again, it gave people more money in their pocket to encourage them to keep spending and to encourage them to keep buying these new products. Now, obviously, people get paid different wages, and basically one way that people could afford these new products was through the use of credit facilities, hire purchase, where people could, for example, go to a catalogue and buy, you know, like their new fashion or their new radios or whatever, and pay them off on a weekly or monthly basis. This became something people could do. So instead of having to save all your money to go and buy something, just like today, if you want to go and buy a PlayStation, Xbox, iPad, something like that, you can do that and you can pay it back weekly or monthly with somewhere like Currys or PC World or Argos. That facility came in the 1920s. So you saw a lot of places actually offering that. So like a famous one was the Sears catalogue. They offered it, but it wasn't just exclusive to Sears. A lot of people offered that. So if you're asked why America boomed in the 20s, consider mass production, which starts off with the car industry. You can consider the cycle of prosperity, so how that actually works. Consider government policy, and you can consider as well people being able to buy on credit. Okay, hope that helps. Thanks for watching.